Why did they make this? Yeah, we know how it goes by now. Why did they make this? Also spoilers for a 30-year-old movie. Welcome to Controversy, where we are supposed to be talking about the various kinds of game controversies that occur during the long history of video games, but not today. Oh, don't misunderstand, we'll still talk about some game controversy, but our topic today is a prime example of a game being far more interesting than the controversy it caused. Or should I say, the game's existence. Which is why I've been asking, why did they make this? This is the question that we are going to try to answer for today's Money. That's why, it's because money. Thank y'all for watching, good night. No, wait. It's not good enough. Why did they make this? I do know of one entity whom we can assign blame to, though, and that's our good old friends at good old Rockstar Games. I am forever indebted to them for causing all of those controversies just so I could cover them on this show long after the relevance, but their success had some nasty consequences. The worst of them all being imitators. GTA not only innovated on the open world gameplay design concept it's so well known for, it kickstarted a trend of violent and crude action games trying to get a slice of its pie. Hilariously, some of these titles were also based on the films that GTA took the absolute piss out of, but we ain't talking about those ones. No. GTA's greatest sin here lies in paving the path to the most bizarre of those film-based cash grabs. Folks, may I introduce you all Reservoir Dogs. And I guarantee that even if you've already seen the movie that this game's based on, by the end of this video, you will also be asking yourselves, why the fuck did they make this? Buckle up, little doggies, we're going for a ride. Reservoir Dogs the movie was released in 1992 and is the feature-length film debut from renowned director, writer, actor, Quentin Tarantino. Now, I'm a dumb baby who's only seen 2 of his films at the time of writing, but I'm gonna make a bold assumption and say that compared to his later entries, Reservoir Dogs is pretty dang simple. It revolves around a team of 8 professional criminals who plan a bank robbery, and the robbery goes horribly wrong, so they have to deal with the immediate fallout and consequences of the robbery going horribly wrong. It's a pretty neat film with a pretty neat non-linear storytelling device, and it's as long as it needs to be for something with this kind of setup, while still managing to go in some interesting directions with how it decides which characters get development, before they all die horribly thanks to the undercover cop who spends most of the story in a pool of his own blood. Except for Steve Buscemi, like, you can't kill Steve Buscemi. With all this in mind, you're probably thinking that this is the exact type of movie that they should have made into an action game, right? If you said no, well, too bad for your stupid ass, cause that's what the folks at Sci Games believed. I know it's probably SCI Games, but I'm just gonna pronounce it like that cause it's easier to say. Sci Games were a British publisher/developer who had been doing the whole publishing and developing thing since the 90s, but hadn't really developed or published anything super notable with the exception of Carmageddon everywhere. What they did have was loads of money and good business decisions, which is how they ended up getting the license for Reservoir Dogs, and how they bought out the parent company for a more notable British developer, Eidos Interactive. Following this, they started using that name on their published projects before Square Enix bought them out a couple years later, so I hope you keep that in mind when you see the Eidos logo on any of their games released between 2006 and 2009. It might just save your life. But what about the developer? Well, through a long and grueling interview process that involved representatives from them dressing up as the Reservoir Dogs and bringing in a rotting detached ear to the meeting, the British pubs hired another British team to do the work, Blitz Games. Okay, that's not entirely true. The ear was fake. They really did do that to get their attention. But hey, it worked. And I'm sure Blitz Games will sound familiar to y'all if you hate Glover or you're a licensed games buff. But from the outset, it was clear that they were determined to get a real hit with this one. For starters, and to make the naming conventions even more fun, Blitz gave the team assigned to this project its own name, with a focus on M-rated titles like Reservoir Dogs. Volatile Games. Just ignore the other M-rated game they did before then. This is the real deal. Secondly, these Brits loved Reservoir Dogs. So despite having only a year and £1 million to get it completed, they were determined to make sure everything about the final product was as faithful to its source material as possible, while adding in some new material based around story sequences that the game didn't show, like Mr. Pink getting the diamonds that he stashed away while he was on the lam, or Mr. Blue doing something, or Nice Guy Eddie cutting the LAPD's roster in half, because that's exactly what they were doing when they weren't present in the fucking movie, right? Making smart decisions like that. Why did they make that? Getting ahead of myself. 1 year of development later, the two teams released Reservoir Dogs, the video game, in the late summer of 2006 onto the Xbox and the PS Vita within European regions, with North America getting it later that fall. Considering I have a point to prove here, I got myself a copy of the game and played through it. Twice, actually. And I'll explain why as we go over the game. I hope you can tell how excited I am for this. I can only hold in my confused babbling for so long. You see, it's starting to slip out already. True to Volatile's word, Reservoir Dogs, the game's plot, is mostly a recreation of the movie's story via mid-2000s pre-rendered cutscenes. Unfortunately, Steve Buscemi and, well, most of the original actors declined to reprise their roles here. The only one who did agree to that task was Michael Madsen, you know, the ear guy.
Hey, what's going on? You hear that?
He is arguably the most iconic character in the film, so I guess that's enough, but Madsen doesn't exactly sound like he's putting much effort into it.
Try out the guns, knock yourself out. I gotta take a piss.
And then they brought in a bunch of VO talent to imitate the rest of the original cast, including, to my surprise, 2 of the Teen Titans. Now, one of them does a good job of covering that up, which isn't hard because they're playing Mr. Blue, but the other one, not so much.
Everybody freeze. Stand still. Don't run. Freeze, assholes.
Nice try, guys, but that ain't Mr. Orange. That's Robin. And/or Lloyd. And/or Red Herring. And/or Crutchfield. In between those pre-rendered scenes are the new story additions, and this is what Reservoir Dogs' gameplay is framed around. That gameplay consists of 2 modes, on-foot third-person shooting, and on-road third-person driving, plus shooting. Unlike most of the other GTA likes, there ain't no open world, just a string of linear levels where you have a bunch of guns, a lot of cops and other NPCs in front of you, and plenty of cover in between. You do the math. The vehicle segments have you driving through fake LA to get to a specific location under a time limit, or keep up with another car without getting your shit ruined, or ram/shoot up those coppers until they explode. Both gameplay modes are about as basic as they come, and would be nothing special if the game wasn't judging your performance every step of the way. Indeed, Volatile implemented a rating system with the shooting and drooving here that will rank your performance depending on your actions during each level. And there are 3 types of ranks that you could get: Professional, Career Criminal, and Psychopath. Each rank will go towards a meter that averages your overall rank and determines which of the 3 endings you get when you complete the game. Yep, you heard me right. Different endings, because they covered every possible inch of the plot that they could cover, but they still wanted to leave the ending ambiguous. Or in this case, less ambiguous. But the point stands, this is so fucking stupid. Why did they make this game? Naturally, this is why I did 2 playthroughs for this game, and the first time around I went for the professional rating. This was rather tricky because the ranks are assigned based on how many people you mow down. So getting the professional rating meant I had to stop myself from shooting anyone. However, there are still cops and other NPCs in your way, the former of whom will shoot the shit out of you to death on sight, so you can't just run through the level, although you can try, and the latter of whom will bolt immediately towards the nearest and rather conveniently placed alarm to alert more cops who will shoot the shit out of you to death on sight. So how can you get through all these meat piles without turning them into meat piles or yourself into a meat pile? Well, that's where the game's hostage mechanic comes into play. Yes, you heard me correctly, hostage mechanic. And a relatively complex one at that. You trade your weapon onto these sentient 3D models to freeze them in their tracks, and by using the right control stick you can move them around, usually to the nearest wall to plant their ass there forever. For a more personal touch, you can grab one of these suckers and drag them around the level to prevent those cops from shooting the shit out of you to death, so long as you don't have your back turned. You can even have the cops drop their weapons if you rough up your hostage a bit. Although they don't have a lot of vitality, so you'll need to grab another one as soon as the previous one gets a heart attack or whatever the hell happens here. Unless you have a full adrenaline meter. Yep, I swear on Martha's grave, there's an adrenaline meter here. And if you activate it while holding a hostage, you pull off the character's special move, which just kind of has them beat the shit out of the hostage to make everyone around them shit the shit out of them. Oh, I see what they did here. It's kind of like the ear cutting scene, but they're beating the shit out of the hostage. Why do they have to cut away? I mean, Mr. Blonde, he still does the... What? Why did... Yeah, never mind. In summary, getting the professional rating during the shooting levels involves repeating these hostage mechanics over and over and over again until you get to the end of the level, and while it wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it'd be, it's as stupid as it sounds and as stupid as it looks. Not even the SWAT team were a threat with this approach. It's ridiculous. Not to mention, boring. At least in this ending, Steve Buscemi escapes. Like I said, you can't kill Steve Buscemi. Like, why would you even try?
God, they shot him, man.
Not shot, no, dude.
They shot Donnie?
There weren't any shots fired.
Huh?
It's a heart attack. Call the medics, dude.
So for my second playthrough, I decided to go all out and aim for the psychopath ending. And as you can imagine, it's immediately more engaging. This time I was able to use the adrenaline meter to go into bullet time and wipe out as many of these dumbos as possible. But this approach still has its problems. Now we're just switching out one type of repetition for another, and frankly, this game ain't no Max Payne. But I do appreciate them placing health stations around every corner. It made going through these stages incredibly easy. I could also complain about how stupid it is for most of these characters to be interacting with the police and or civilians in any way whatsoever when they were so careful and discreet in the film. But that would be too nitpicky of me. And I've got to save that energy for later. Also, Steve Buscemi dies in this ending, and that just isn't canon. Like I said, you cannot kill Steve Buscemi. The universe cannot allow that.
Mama, another gator got in the house.
Another gator? Give me that shovel. Come here.
Get him, Mama. Get that gator.
As for the driving segments, getting a professional rating here involves driving right to the end of the track and trying not to kill and or blow up anyone along the way. Unless the level tells you that you need to kill and or blow up someone along the way. Fake LA traffic is about as busy as the real thing though, so you're still gonna knock into a lot of these cars. Maybe even blow up one or two of them by accident, not to mention the occasional teleporting pedestrian. But that's just normal LA, so I wasn't too fazed by that. Obviously, you'll need to do the exact opposite for the psychopath approach. Lock onto every possible car and pedestrian with your gun and blow them up and away. Just like how the movie went.
I'm taking you back to the rendezvous, Mr. Orange. Joe's gonna get you to a doctor. You're gonna be okay. I just need to turn LA into a Mad Max world, alright? Don't worry, these cops won't know where we're going at all. Look, my dick is driving the car now. That's how I can shoot them up and hold your hand at the same time.
Okay, I won't lie. These were my favorite segments in the game. After I stopped caring about how this made no sense whatsoever, I could revel in the Need for Speed Most Wanted-esque chaos, and I had some decent fun. To offer some actual praise, the driving controls are surprisingly good, and here the adrenaline meter allows for a quick nitrous boost. Again, don't think about it. So you get to pull off some sick GTA-style slow-motion stunts using the ramps that are all over LA. Yeah, that's also just a normal LA thing, look it up. Even better, while you're doing all of this, you get to listen to K-Billy's Super Sounds of the 70s, an in-universe 70s rock radio station that has all of the tracks from the movie and soundtrack. Hope you like Ooga Chaka. So, provided that you don't fail the mission by the end of the course, in which case you have to do it all over again, another rather common LA thing, this is the most fun that one can get out of Reservoir Dogs. Adding up all these elements together, though, leaves us with a dull-as-fuck shooter that has some interesting mechanics, which only serves to pad out the runtime, and cannot shake the feeling of this being a desperate cash grab. And say what you want about those other movie-based GTA-style games from around the same time, weirdly enough. For as obvious a cash grab as they are, and how turning them into a game might also conflict with the themes of their respective movies, at least I can see them working as these kinds of games. Maybe with a bigger budget, Reservoir Dogs could have worked. And it's not like there wasn't effort put into creating the movie's vibe. Like I said, the team really really love this film. And credit where it's due, they also get down that Tarantino-esque rambling and phrasing whenever there's new dialogue, and they're still able to tell the whole story using that same non-linear structure. But if you'll allow me to get snobbish for a moment, their approach here showcases a lack of understanding as to why that film works so well. You want to know what the trick to Reservoir Dogs was? A film about a botched bank robbery? The film never shows us the robbery in question, just the before and after. And here come these Brits wanting to not just show us the robbery, but every nook and cranny that the film, I guess in their view, omitted. It's all so unnecessary. Like, I didn't learn anything new about these characters or the story by re-experiencing it in this manner, just that they ran into a bunch of cops and NPCs. The closest the game ever got to justifying this approach was with its tutorial sequence that has all of the characters just joshing around with each other and showing off their personalities as the game demonstrates its mechanics. They even play paintball. But that doesn't come anywhere close to how the movie develops Mr. Orange and Mr. Blonde's backstories, which for some odd reason, Volatile left out completely. I don't think you even have to like the film at all to get my point here. We didn't need to see what Mr. Blue was up to after the cops showed up at the bank. We didn't need to see how Mr. Pink may or may not have escaped after the story's climax. And we didn't need to see Mr. Blonde prancing around a mall and killing every single person on sight like the deranged lunatic he is. Hopefully, you now understand why I have been asking, why did they make this game? Instead of talking about the controversy. And speaking of, Razzle Dazzle Dogs found itself banned from sale in Oceanic regions and was close to being banned in the UK if these Parliament discussions were of any indication. The promotional trailers probably didn't help matters either, although I think they're quite hilarious.
Tara put fucking bullets right through your heart. You put the fucking gun down now. God damn you, Shod. Don't make me do this.
You can also add Germany and Japan onto that list, if we're to take the developer's word. At the very least, it doesn't seem like they were sold in either country, so maybe they were banned or restricted, maybe they weren't. Regardless, the primary reason that the bans had occurred was due to the game's violence, i.e., the ability to kill any NPC on screen should you so choose. I guess if you can't emulate GTA, just emulate its controversies. And yeah, the game is violent, and there are some attempts to make that violence harrowing, especially with the hostage shouting that they don't want to die and all, the selfish pricks. I don't have time to listen to your crap. I'm trying to make the LAPD look like the most incompetent police force in America. There's also the whole Mr. Blonde cutting off the ear thing, which, even if you still don't see it, you do hear those squishy sounds of the emergency plastic surgery going on.
Now, do you want to see what I can do with someone's throat?
Now that's fan service. With that said, it's not nearly as bad in this regard as some of its contemporaries, and there's a distinct lack of blood during the bullet time sequences too. Like, come on guys, you couldn't have just added some sprays here? Like, this is weak sauce. Even the first Max Payne had more oomph than this. At the very least, it's fitting that the same aspects from both the movie and the game got similar flack, with moviegoers and members of the development team walking out of their respective areas due to the violent content. The more things change, the more things stay. Can you see why I went with this angle instead of just talking about the controversy? There's just not much here. Anyway, the game's release saw a very middling reception from critics and decent sales, if we're again to go by the developer's word. And they would go on to work with Namco Bandai with the reboot of their Max Payne ripoffs, Dead to Rights: Retribution. This one also performed okay, but it would be the last Volatile title to see the light of day as Blitz Games' existence became increasingly volatile. In late 2013, while the team was working on their next title, The Typing of the Dead Overkill, other sources say it was just Blitz who helped, but this is straight from their website, so I'm planting my foot on that claim, they got the news that Blitz Studios as a whole was shutting down. A true shame for all of the Epic Mickey 2 fans out there. But there was a silver lining. The fellows working on that Typing of the Dead game went and formed a new team to continue work on it after making a new agreement with Sega, and through what sounds like a passionate 6-week crunch period, got the game out in time for Halloween 2013. They made some other stuff afterwards, but who cares? Meanwhile, the company head honchos would go on to form a new company of their own, Radiant Worlds Limited, where they put a bunch of resources into one game for the next 4 years that ended up being cancelled, after which they got bought out by Rebellion Developments, of all companies, and have since only worked on the latest Sniper Elite title.
Okay, bronze lining.
I'm not sure if there's anything else to glean from the game or its controversy at this point. I don't doubt some other folks would maybe have similarly snobbish gripes about the game like I do, but in spite of my constant questioning as to why the game exists, it is a somewhat interesting game in terms of how it came to exist and what it tried to do. It just didn't work. Nor did the other Reservoir Dogs game from a few years back. Some films just won't work as games. Like, imagine if they made a game based off of another non-linear kind of film like Memento, or any of the Ocean's movies with all of their heists, or hell, fucking Fight Club. Like, oh my god, like, imagine if they turned Fight Club into a fighting game. Like, you would have to be a fucking idiot to turn Fight Club into something like... GTA was a mistake. Huh? Yeah, what's up? Oh, shit. Alright, I gotta run. I have an errand to attend to. Martha, it's time for the ritual! Get the sticks! Following the recording and editing of this audio, and right at the start of putting the video together, I became aware of a PC version for this game, released alongside the console ones. How did I miss this during the initial research? I'm an idiot. And upon examining this version, I discovered that the blood sprays during the bullet time sequences I had surmised were missing are indeed present here. Not only that, but the adrenaline attack sequence shabambles also show different camera angles from the console versions, resulting in a bit more action going on here, even if it still pans away from the worst of it, especially with Mr. Blind. Did the consoles just not have enough processing power to show the blood splurts during the bullet time shit? Or did Volato purposely cut it out as well as edit the other sequences in order to appease the great 2006 woke mob? The answer may surprise you, but the real question is, does this change anything that we know about Reservoir Dogs the game? No.